Hello, hello. Hello, Internet. How goes it? I'm hearing myself twice. This is crazy. There it goes. Hello to all. Oh, we got quite a few folks here. This is great. Feel free to say hi in the chat. We're doing a little intro stream, a little quick stream to test some things out. And I think I can see the chat if y'all do say something. I'm still getting used to the controls here. But say hello. Let me know if you're applying to App Academy. Feel free to let me know if you're in App Academy. Maybe you're an active student. Maybe you're just checking it out, want to check out CSS. And maybe you just stumbled upon the channel. And we're like, hey, what's this? This looks cool. We are getting ready to do, in the month of August, a number of streams on different topics around coding, software development. And today we're just kind of testing out the waters, making sure everything looks good. On Sunday, we have a how to use ChatGPT stream coming up by one of our instructors, Mike. I'm super pumped about that. I think it's going to be a really fun stream to be a part of. So make sure you're here for that. And then let me see if I can pull up my slides here. Start presenting. Let me see. Boom. Love that. Cool. Can everybody see that? Everybody able to see? Oh, I can like do different things too. This is great. So today we're talking about styling in CSS. And I think in next week, I believe, we've got an intro to HTML course or stream that's going to happen with Diego. And he's one of our instructors as well. And so I'll let him kind of dig more into the HTML side of things. I thought I'd go over some of the CSS style of things, but we'll talk a little bit about HTML since we will need both in order to do this exercise. So today's agenda, hello. Hey, Nukambi. Welcome to the stream. I'm going to test something out since you're here. I'm going to bring, hey, look at that. That's nice. That's nice. We've got a new setup. We're going to have different instructors streaming. And so we're running through with a new setup to try things out. So today's agenda is we're going to talk through the basics of CSS, just kind of like what is it? Talk about the anatomy of a CSS rule. We'll dig in a little bit about box model and why that's so important. And then talk a little bit about pseudo classes if we have time at the end. And then I've got a little lab, little exercise, little homework assignment for you to do some practicing of CSS. And then we'll take some questions. But before we even start, does anybody have any questions? Maybe it's not about CSS. Maybe it's about something else coding related. Maybe it's about App Academy. Maybe it's about the wonders of the world. Feel free to ask any questions. No questions. Great. Well, sounds good. Let's keep going then. And then just to make sure, can everybody hear me okay? I'm assuming that people are able to hear me. Oh, I did hear my mic earlier. So no, we're good. Cool. All right, let's get started. I can hear you. Great. Thank you. Appreciate that. So CSS styling. The way a good analogy that I love to use for when talking about like what is the difference between HTML, what's the difference between CSS, is to compare it to probably a house. So in a house, you have the framing and kind of the foundation of the house. That is what HTML is. And then CSS is like the walls, and you put paint on the walls, and you put in some, light fixtures that look fancy, and it's the styling of the house is how you can kind of think about CSS. And so we're going to be diving into how to make the HTML that you are using look good, how to style it so that it looks good even across devices. So CSS is something that helps with what's called responsive design. So no matter how big your screen is, whether it's a huge TV or a regular size monitor, or maybe a smaller laptop, or even a phone like you see on the screen here, the CSS is going to help the content of the page shift around so that it looks good no matter what size of device that you're looking at it on. CSS, does anybody know what CSS stands for? Nukambi, since you're the one chatting it up in the chat, do you know what CSS stands for? Oh, good. Yes. Cascading a style something. Close on the, yeah. Close on the last one. Style sheet. So cascading style sheet. And so what that means is in a CSS rule, and we'll look at this a little bit later. We may not get too much into it since this is more of a quicker stream today, but definitely one of the instructors will dive into this a lot more. But what that means is if you have one CSS rule that, let's say, changes the background color of a div HTML element to black, and then you have another rule under that that says the div background color should be yellow. The one that's going to win at the end of the day is the one at the very bottom. It's the very last thing that is red. So the background color will be yellow and not black. Even though you said it needs to be black, under that you said it needs to be yellow. And so that's why it's called cascading, is because it basically prioritizes everything that's at the bottom. Whatever the last rule is, that's what's going to do. And there's different caveats. There's different things you can do, like putting in important and things like that. We'll kind of look at that here in a little bit. But yeah, that's what cascading style sheets mean. And you can change a lot of things with CSS. I mean, CSS over the years has gotten very cool. You can do a lot of cool animations. Hey, Blood Scooper, how's it going? There's a lot of cool animations that you can do with CSS. I mean, let me pull up here. One cool place that I like to go hang out at is CodePen.io. If you just go into CodePen and you search CSS animations, even better, CSS only animation, there's all kinds of things. So here we have a dog, and you can see that there's some HTML content here that they've put in, and then the rest is just animated. All these different elements on the page are animated to make this dog animation here. And so CSS is very powerful nowadays, and can do quite a lot that used to require like JavaScript or a lot of like scripting heavy type things to do. This is a nice little shiny diamond as well. Again, you can kind of see, let me make this compiled. So we've got some HTML over here that they put in, and then they just use CSS to actually animate everything from there. So very versatile. Something, you know, you might say is a little bit more practical would be like a loading animation. So showing that something is 75% of the way in. Let me see if there's a quick little way to, don't see it on here. I was gonna see if there's a way to edit what it was. I don't know if they take that into consideration or not. No, they don't. But yeah, so that's one animation you can do. Let's see, what's another one? So we've got some social media buttons. The animation there kind of gives it some life to the web page, to the buttons. So those are cool to see too. So, you know, if you're ever curious about like, you know, all the different ways that you can use CSS, just come into codepin.io and do CSS only. And it's very interesting to see all the different animations and styling things that you can do. Like a CSS only countdown clock. That's pretty cool. Cool. So those are some of the possibilities that you can do with CSS. Let's dive into what a CSS rule is. So a rule is just that. It's going to go in the style sheet that we create. We're going to create a file called a .css file. And in that file, we're going to put different rules. And the basic anatomy of a rule is you have a selector. So you're saying, I want to target all of the elements, HTML elements that are in H2 to use this rule. I want them to be this color. I want them, you know, all the text inside of the H2 element to be this font size. I want the H2 element to have margin. We'll look at what that is here in a moment. But you're basically setting like, what is it about the H2 element that you want to change? What about the styling on the page do you want to change? So the selector is very important. And you can do, you know, there's different types of selectors that we'll look at here in a moment. Then you've got the property. So the property is like the color of the text or the font size or the margin. There's padding. There's a lot of different CSS properties that you can do. If you just do a quick Google search of different CSS properties, you can find quite a bit. And then, you know, go and look at things like the complete list of CSS properties as well. And so down here on the left, let me zoom in, you can see background color, background image. There's a lot that you can do, or with the borders. Yeah, so definitely check those out. And then after the property is the value. So you set the property and then you tell it what value you want it to be. So for this instance, we are setting the color to the hexadecimal 333333. So let's just see what that looks like. So that looks like this. So it's kind of a grayish type of color. That's what would be set with this particular rule. Font size is 150%. So if the normal font size is 100%, you're just making it slightly larger, than normal. And then margin, we'll take a look at what that is here in a moment. But yeah, that's the anatomy of a CSS role. Feel free to type in the chat if you have any questions along the way. I'm always happy to answer any questions that folks may have. Next, let's look at the selector. So we talked about the selector here in this case is the H2. So we're targeting all of the H2 elements on the page. And I talked a little bit about how there are different types of selectors. So one type of selector that you may find is the element selector. So that's like the H2, a div, and a P element for the paragraph element. Those are different element selectors that you could use. Then you've got a class selector and ID selector. We'll take a look at that here in a moment. And then universal and attribute selectors. We're really only going to talk about these three. The other two are there, and you definitely our free online curriculum talks all about those. The last two, but I'm going to focus on these three. And if we go, let's just hop into a REPL. So I'm going to just pull up REPL here. So a bit ago, I'm going to put an H2 element. I'm going to say hello world. And a little bit ago, so we're going to run that. Let me see. Can y'all see that? Is that a good size for y'all? Give me a thumbs up if you like it or not. I can zoom in some more if we need to. So now I'll go to that's our HTML file. It has our HTML for the page. And now I'll go to the CSS file and I'm going to let's just add H2 to our style sheet. And we're going to do font size 150%. And let's do color. Let's do red. I like red. Red's good. And so we're saying we want to target all the H2 elements in the HTML file. We want to change the font size to 150%. And then we want to change the color to red. So if I hit run, boom, we have the red hello world here. Now, quiz time. Let's see what would happen if I have another H2 element here. So if I add another H2 element, this is awesome, is going to appear here. But what color will the second one, the second header element be? Anyone want to take a guess? Applies to all, so the color is red. That's right. Yep, that's right. Good job, T-Rex. T-Rex, I think you're from the Discord community. Yeah, I recognize the name. So yeah, so if I run this, it's gonna also be this is awesome. It will also be red. Now, what happens if, let's say I create a second rule here that targets the H2 elements, and I say that the color is going to be yellow. What is going to happen to either one or all of these H2 elements that I have here? Both to yellow. All right. Nukambi says both to yellow. Let's have a look. No more guesses, so let's try it out. Yes, so they both go to yellow. Even though I'm saying I want to change the H2 elements to red, because of the cascading part of a CSS file, a cascading style sheet, because of that, it's going to take the lowermost rule into consideration there. So it's going to apply whatever is towards the bottom of the page. So if I were to remove this and I hit run again, this is going to show as red. Cool. I'm going to change it to, I think it had 333 as, yeah. All right, so now let's play around with some others. So let's say I have a paragraph text here. I'm going to grab some lorem ipsum. And I'm just going to grab this right here. Some random text here. I'm going to put it on the page. Great. So I've got a header, and then I've got some text here. But let's say that I want to put like a nice little border around this. Like I kind of want to package it up a little bit. What would be a great way to do that? So the first thing that I would do is I put a div around these elements. And then I would put them in the right order. And now what I can do is give this a class. So we talked about another type of selector is the class or ID. So this I'll put description. Say I call it description. So here in my CSS file, I can say description. Does anybody know what the dot stands for? So I just put in my rule here. I didn't have a dot. I didn't have anything before the H2 element, but here I have a dot before the word description. What does the dot stand for? Give some helpful hints as well here. Classes, yes. So in order for us to target this div, we call it a class of description, and I've got dot description here, which says target all the elements that have a class equal to description. So if I were to go in here, and let's just say I want to add a border. So we talked about adding a border. Let's say you didn't know how to add a border, and you wanted to kind of learn like, okay, well, like what values can I pair with this border property? A great way to do that is to go to Google, type in CSS border, and cool, we got W3 Schools. Mozilla Developer is one that I really, really like. And then CSS Tricks is kind of a go-to. So if you see Mozilla Developer or CSS Tricks, W3 Schools can be helpful from time to time. Definitely check those out. Let's just take a look at Mozilla Developer. Cool. So we've got some demos here that it shows us. Okay, so we can see, we can say like border solid. We can put like a unit of measure, so one rem. We could also put pixels there, and then solid. It looks like there's also some other types of borders, so a dotted border, a dashed border, and there's just different things. So like if I put border, let me zoom in to this a little bit for you. If I put border 2 pixels dotted, that's going to say the width of the border needs to be 2 pixels and the style needs to be dotted. And then I can also say medium width, dashed style, and what color I want it to be as well. So this can be a really helpful reference. So let's go back to our REPL. Let's just say it's, 2 pixels solid, and we'll do 333 like the text as well. Now, if I run this, you can see now that I've got a border around my description, and it goes around both the H2 and the paragraph element because I've got this div wrapped around both of those other elements. So it adds a nice little border around that, kind of packages it all together. But one of the things, let's hop to that. Let's explore the border just a little bit more. So we also saw back on the Mozilla, so we have the style. So we have dashed, we have dotted style. Let's try those out and see what happens. So I'm going to put dashed and that. Okay. Gives us a nice little coupon effect. I like that. And then if we go dotted, let's run it. Okay, gives us a little dot, pretty straightforward. And then, so we talked about kind of what happens if I had multiple H2s on the page. Now let's see what happens if I add another description element with the same text. And actually, I'm going to change the text of the H2. If I run this, okay, so it gives us 2 of those boxes now with the text in it. We can see that the border at the bottom of the first one and the top of the second one are like really close together. So I think we'll talk about that next. So the next part of this is the CSS box model. The box model is really important to understand with CSS because, as you can see in our example here, everything in HTML is just a box. And I can show a really good example of this. Let's just say I'm going to add a style. I'm going to do an asterisk, and that literally means target every single element on the HTML page. Target everything. And we're going to do a border 1 pixel solid black. While we do this, I'm actually going to take away this for a second. So let's just run that. So I'm putting a 1 pixel border around every element of the page. And you may be confused a little bit here because there is kind of a darker border here around the entire page. Well, anybody want to take a guess at what HTML element that very first dark border is? Pull up the HTML here. Any guesses as to where this very first border is coming from? What HTML element could that be? The document itself. Yep, HTML. That's right. So HTML, the HTML element, is an element of the page. And then the reason that it looks like it's kind of 2 pixels instead of 1 is because the body of the page as well is an element. And so it kind of looks like it's doubled up there a little bit, but it's actually the HTML and the body of the element. And so then we have our div, which goes around here. And then we have our H2. There's the border around that. We have our paragraph. There's a border around that. So everything in CSS is just a box. And I'm going to go in. I'm going to put the slides here as well. Let me grab the slides link for you. I think I put that right here. All right, I'm going to drop it in the chat for you. So those are the slides. If you want to have a look, there is a link on this slide 6 that says link to the AA Open content. That's going to take you right to let's see if it'll pop up there. Oh no, there we go. Oh, scared me for a second. That's going to open it up right to our free curriculum online. This is the same curriculum that our online programs use. And it just minus a few projects that we have our paid students doing that they get feedback from our instructors on. And so in the curriculum, we talk about the box model. So as I said, everything is a box. We have 3 parts of the box model. There's the margin, the border, and the padding. We've already looked at the border, right? So if we go back in here, let me just get rid of this. I'm going to add a border, 1 pixel dashed, and 333 for the color. Run that again, make this look a little bit better, right? And I'm going to go 2 pixels on that just so it's easier to see. Cool. So we're back at here. So the border goes around the element. The margin is the space outside of the border. And then the padding is the space between the border and the content that's inside of that element. So right now, if I were to go, there it is. So right now you can actually see that there's already, so if H2, the H2 element is an element that already has some margin attached to it by default. All the browsers, by and large, attach the same styling to these header elements the same way. So if I were to go in and I do, let's just reset the margin to 0 pixels for the H2 element. You'll see now that that space between the border of the div and the H2 has now gone away. By the same way, paragraph element also has some default styling attached to it. And so we can make that go away by just resetting it to margin 0 pixels. And now you can see that that spacing has gone away. And a lot of websites you see, this is called normalizing the CSS, because some browsers do things a little bit differently. And so if you want to have a consistent look across all of the browsers, you can normalize it by basically setting it to 0 and then adding more stylings later so that you have more control on what the styling looks like across browsers. Cool. So we have a margin 0 margin here, but everything is really cramped, right? And in particular, these 2 elements, these 2 borders here are just really, really cramped. And so what we can do is add some margin to it because we want these 2 boxes here that we have to be spaced out a little bit more. So what we'll do is, well, actually, let's ask you. Looking at our box model, if we want the boxes to be separated from each other a little bit, would we use padding or would we use margin to do that? T-Rex voting for margin. I don't hear any objections. So let's try it out. So the boxes that we have here, that is our description class element, the div with the class of description. So inside of our class, because period here means class description, I'm going to add some margin. And I'm just going to put, well, this is a good time to talk about this. So let's put these. So I've got 4 different values here. And each one is the length of a different side of the box. So it starts at the top and it goes clockwise. So this is the top margin here. Then we have the right margin, the bottom margin, and the left margin. So if I want, I can have a lot of control over this. I could say, let's add 10 pixels to the top, 5 pixels to the bottom. I'm going to run that. So now you can see we've got some space here between. There's also a little bit of space above here as well. Let's say I add 50 pixels to the bottom. What does that do? Okay, spreads it out. I also have that same amount of margin at the bottom of this here. You just can't necessarily see it because there's no content under the second box. But it definitely added more to that. What if I add 50 to the top and 50 to the bottom? Then that gives me 50 pixels right here. And then I have 50 pixels here and 50 pixels here. So there's 100 pixels in between there because it's the bottom margin of this box and the top margin of this box. 50 plus 50 is 100. And then I've got 50 down here, which I can't see, but and then I could also do this in a shorthand way and say, if these 2 values I wanted to be the same, I could just put 2 values here. And this first value is the top and bottom, and the second value is now the left and right. And then if I wanted to do 50 pixels all the way around on all sides, I could just do that. Just one value here. So if I just do this, you can see it shrinks everything. It puts 50 pixels at the top, the right, the bottom, and the left. But I really like, doing something like this. Let's see. Cool. That looks a little bit better. I might even put like a, 10 here just to get it off the sides a little bit. I like the look of that a lot better. Cool. So this already looks a lot better styled. It's a lot more readable, right? So then let's take a look at padding. So padding is what gives, if we look at our box model image here, padding is the space between the border and the content of that's inside of that element. And so if I wanted to go in here, and let's say, I'm, hello world and the lorem ipsum text are just really close together. I really want to separate that a little bit. Then one thing I could do, I could use margin in this situation, where I could say, hey, let's give 10 pixels all the way around there, or maybe even just do top and bottom 10 pixels and 0 on the left and right for the paragraph element, which contains this lorem ipsum. I could also change this from margin to padding and get a pretty similar effect. It's going to look slightly different, but for the most part, look the same. So that gives us some, and if I just add, let me do this. Border 1 pixel, solid black. So you can see there's space between the border of the paragraph element and the content of that paragraph element. But if I change this to margin instead of padding, now the space is on the outside of the border instead of the inside of the border for that paragraph element. And so, I may add, let's say I keep the margin 10 pixels on the top and bottom and 0 pixels on the left and right. And let's say I add 0 pixels on the top and bottom and 10 pixels on the left and right of padding to this. I now get this better looking, better styled. Things breathe a little bit more easier on the page, a little bit easier to read now on there. Cool. So that is margin and padding. And the same thing still applies here. So, this shorthand is basically me typing out this, where you've got 0 pixels, 10 pixels, 0 pixels, 10 pixels. Top, right, bottom, left. Same deal. Cool. And then the next thing, let's take images. Let's add an image to our page. I'm gonna add, let me see. Let's take good old Google. Copy image address. We're just gonna take that for a sec. And let's say I'm going to add an image. The source is going to be this. This is kind of a big image, so I'll tell you what, I'm going to do this. Let's give it an ID. The ID is equal to Google logo. All right. And then now, does anybody know how I would target my ID Google logo? So for classes, we use dot to denote that it's a class. What do we use to say whether it's an ID that we're trying to target instead of a class? Any ideas? No. Okay. So I'm gonna say it. It is a pound sign or hashtag, or however you want to say it. That's a millennial versus Gen Z thing, right? Versus boomer thing. It's like, do you say pound or do you say hashtag? Yeah, let me know in the comments. Pound or hashtag. So I'm going to use the hashtag here, and I will do Google logo. So that's going to say, look for the element on the page that has an ID of Google logo. And here, we're going to make it a width of 100 pixels. That's going to make it significantly smaller so that it's easier to work with on the page. Now, can anybody tell me what would I use to center this on the page? So very much like Google has here, I want to center this image onto my web page. How would I do that here? What CSS would I use? Align items. Okay. So that's getting into a little bit more of something that we haven't touched yet on, which is Flexbox. And you could definitely do that via Flexbox. Is there a way to do it with one of the properties that we've already used on the page? Margin auto. Yeah. So one way, yep, that's right. On the left and right. That's right. So what I can do here is I first need to do display block. And I'll talk about why in just a moment. And then to what T-Rex said, I can do margin 0 auto. So what this is saying is add 0 margin to the top and bottom, but then on the left and right side, I'm going to do auto, which is going to split the difference depending on what the width of the page is. It splits the difference. So if I click on run, now I've got a centered image there. It is essentially the same thing as, I think it is anyway, 50%. Let's see. Believe. Oh, it did not like that. Okay, great. So let's just do auto. Ah, there it goes, 50%. Okay, not the same thing. Definitely not the same thing. So let's look into this a little bit more, because now I'm curious too. So CSS margin auto. Cool. So I'm going to look for Mozilla or CSS tricks. I'm going to choose Mozilla on this. And let's see if auto. Let's see, does it tell us why? So auto, the browser selects a suitable margin to use. For example, in certain cases, this value can be used to center an element. And so kind of like to what I was saying earlier, it splits the difference. You can see in terms of horizontal centering, to what T-Rex was saying, there is a display flexbox, which we won't really get into flexbox today, but justified content center could be used to do that as well. There's a few different ways that you could center an element on the page. But let's talk a little bit about what this display block is. So display block, I'm going to go look at, I'm just going to change this to display. So block elements, so there's different types of HTML elements, and some of them are block and some of them are inline block. Block elements, the box model that we talked about, the box kind of takes up the whole width of the page. Inline block, they kind of like scrunch up next to each other. And I think the best way to show this, let me just add in down here. I'm going to add a div. I'm going to say hello. I'm going to add another div that says world. So divs out of the box, just plain divs, are what are called block elements. If we were to add a border around this, you would see the box go all the way across the screen for both of these elements. Now, if I change these instead to spans, spans are similar to divs. The difference is that spans are a display inline block. And so you can see now these two elements are actually right next to each other. They don't take up the full width of their container because they're now inline block elements. And so by default, an image is an inline block element. And I can show that here. Let me just add this away. And I'm going to add a quick style here of width of 50 pixels. I'm just going to have a small image pop up here. You can see that this new little Google image here is scrunched up right next to the image. If I were to change these from spans back to divs, what do y'all think would happen? You think that the image would be on a third line? So like it'll say hello world and then image. Do you think that the image would be next to one of these elements? Do you think that it would be above the element? Any guesses as to what would happen when I hit run right now that we've changed these from spans to divs? 3 lines. Nukambi says 3 lines. All right. Let's try it out. 3 lines. That's correct. So the reason the image is still an inline block. It is still trying to hug up against the world element, but the world element is a block element. So it's going to take up the full width and force the image element down. And then, if I were to just make this style display inline block just for this one element, the two would end up being next to each other, but not for this first one because it's still a block element. So display block and inline block are really important. And if we go back to our CSS, we told the Google ID Google logo be a display block. If we were to remove this, it would not center on the screen because with inline blocks, their margin, there is no auto doesn't do anything. There's no left or right on the margin because there's no margin on inline block elements. So that's why what we do first is say display block so that it does have margin and it will center that on the screen. Cool. That was a lot of exploring too. That was fun. Let's have a look. I think I was going to go over. Yep. So we did some time to code. Cool. Lab time. So on the lab, I have something here for you. If let me add in. Let's see. I don't have. Let me grab the link again. Give me just a sec. Cool. So I'm going to post the slides again for anybody that may be new. If you go to the slides and hop down towards the bottom, you come to this page. You can sign up to do this project by joining the App Academy team. If you haven't already, just signing up for one of the for REPL, and then you click here to start your project. That's going to bring you to this. So this is a little project that I've made, and in the comments of the HTML, I put in what you're supposed to do. So adding some CSS styling, I added some HTML things to do in there, and then also making sure to add your CSS file. So if you go and look, one of the things that I didn't cover that I should have is we have all of our CSS in this CSS file, but we actually have to say in the head element, hey, here's the CSS that we want you to implement on this HTML page. And so I'm asking you to do that, to add some styling, and then you can actually submit the project in. And it'll give you a URL you could use if you want to join the Discord community. I think I have. Yeah. So if you're on Twitch, you'll see the Discord invite there. That might need to be. Let me just add the Discord for our YouTube folks too, because we've got a few folks on YouTube. Let me grab this link for you. Cool. So we have an open Discord community. There's thousands of folks in it where you can join them and get code reviewed. Here you go. Popping that in the chat right now. Feel free to join the Discord if you want. And yeah, it'll be a little assignment that you can do. What to do if you get stuck. So if you get stuck while you're working on the project, take 15 minutes to try to figure it out yourself before you do anything else. Kind of test and see if you remember what you learned, but only spend 15 minutes. Don't go, spending hours on hours thinking like, oh, I can just do this myself. It's not necessary to waste time essentially when you could be getting help. After spending 15 minutes looking for yourself, go Google for 15 minutes. Try to find documentation like the one that we looked at earlier. So Mozilla, web docs, go check those out. There's good resources on Google. If you still can't figure out how to do something after that 15 minutes, then ask people in the Discord. There are tons of people in there. You can hop in the general channel and check it out. So yeah, that is what you can do if you get stuck. Cool. Any questions? Round 2 of questions. Everybody feeling good about the intro to CSS? Everybody's like, I'm gonna go CSS the crap out of stuff now, yeah? Awesome. So, like I said, feel free to check out that assignment. Feel free to go in and say hi to us if you join the Discord. Sunday, we have one of our instructors, Mike, coming to talk about how to use ChatGPT while you're coding. So I'm very excited about that. I'm going to be watching that one. I'm going to be watching all of our streams coming up this month. We're going to have about 2 streams per week. So feel free to follow, share. It really helps just, sharing with others that may be interested in coding the streams and having them follow. So appreciate everything. I've been using ChatGPT. Let me pull this up. Been using ChatGPT to study. It's been a big help. Yeah. Are you going through the open curriculum? Are you going through one of our paid programs or just kind of on your own, Mikambi? Yeah, I've been using ChatGPT since November when it came out. And for all sorts of things, for coding, for user interviews, which has been really helpful to synthesize a bunch of data. I even used it to make charts of a bunch of CSV data. It was pretty wild. Oh, great. You're in week 9 of our open curriculum. Awesome. Yeah, if you using ChatGPT as a paired programmer, or even just to help you understand maybe, why is this code like this, or explain this code, or help me find the error in this code. There's so much you can do with ChatGPT. So I'm very excited about that. And I'll definitely be there on Sunday. I believe that is on Sunday at, let me get the exact time. Sunday at 4 p.m. Central Time. So definitely check that out. In the Discord, we have a stream team channel that talks about when all the upcoming streams are. So if you ever want to check in on that, check out the Discord there. Cool. Thanks everybody for coming. This has been really fun. I think we kind of like got all the kinks worked out of all the stream stuff, so that's exciting. And yeah, we'll see you on Sunday. Everybody have a good night. Oh, I forgot. Oh, wait. Don't leave. We're gonna raid. We're gonna raid into somebody. Let me pull this up. Let's see if this works. Let's go share the love to another developer somewhere. So let me find. Let's see. Software and game development. Oh, someone's making tic-tac-toe game in JavaScript. Okay, we're gonna go raid this person. So let me, and everybody, her name is Harmony, it looks like. So let's go. How do I do this? Stream manager, here we go. Okay, so all the Twitch folks, we're gonna go raid Harmony. So everybody say, hi Harmony from App Academy, and we'll go over there. Going in 8, 7. All right, let's go in. Let's say hi in the chat and be kind and be good. See y'all there.